Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my movie vlog. My name is John Campea, and this is the Weekly Hero, the roundup show, if you will, for us to talk about all the big stuff that has happened in this previous week in the world of superhero movies and superhero TV shows, because, you know, it's good to give a couple of days, come back, regroup, talk about all the stuff, share our thoughts and opinions about everything that's got going on this week. Movies are a couple of number of big things that we're going to talk about here today. Dark Knight's 10th anniversary, a possible Black Widow movie, Flashpoint getting directors, Black Lightning getting its premiere. A lot of big stuff happened this week. So here's how today's show is going to go. I got a number of topics here that I'm going to bring up and discuss here on the Weekly Hero. Then after we get through all that stuff, I'm going to take your live questions. There's going to be a couple of ways to get live questions in. Number one is to use Super Chat. Number two is to use Twitter if there is time. And then we will go from there. So with all that out of the way, let's get started running down through everything that went on this week in superhero movie and television news. And here are just some of the big things. The first thing up here is this. How old do we feel now? The Dark Knight is turning 10 years old this year. It's not this month. It doesn't actually turn 10 until July. But it turns 10 years old this week. 10 years since The Dark Knight came out. I swear, it just feels like it was just the other day. Anyway, on top of the fact that we all feel much older now, knowing that The Dark Knight came out 10 years ago, it was reported that the theater chain Showcase Cinemas are going to be doing some 10th anniversary screenings for The Dark Knight in a couple of their theaters on the East Coast. Not many. I think it's 4 or 5 or 6 theaters, just a small number, and they're doing that in February. Now, why are they doing it in February when the actual 10th anniversary is in July? I'm not really sure. But the one thing that kind of came up was this, was that even though Showcase is doing some, some screenings of The Dark Knight to celebrate its 10th anniversary in July, I think, or in February, I think when July comes along, now I got nothing to back this up with, nobody's told me this, I haven't read any reports, but I suspect because of the importance, and we talked about this on the John Campea show earlier today, because of the sheer importance of The Dark Knight. Because I believe the 3 most important superhero movies in the modern age, like not all the way back to Christopher Reeve's Superman, but the modern era of comic book movies, the 3 most important ones, in no particular order, and I said this earlier today, is the first X-Men movie, because according to the producers over at Marvel and of the Dark Knight series, that's the movie that convinced studios and filmmakers that you can make really good, solid comic book movies today. The other one is The Dark Knight, that showed you can make like even awards caliber level comic book movies from the genre. And then The Avengers, which showed you can make good movies that are also massive blockbuster hits. So these 3 movies, I believe, are the most important in the modern era, and I believe because of the importance, and as the comic book genre becomes more and more the biggest genre in movies, I think the importance of these 3 films, The Dark Knight in particular, is going to be more and more celebrated. So I think when July comes around, we might get like maybe 300 or 400 screens across the country doing special 10th anniversary screenings of The Dark Knight. At least we can all hope. All right, let's move on now to the next topic. The next topic that was big this week is that after going through 3 or 4 different sets of directors and screenwriters and all that kind of stuff, it appears that Warner Brothers has found the next set of directors who will probably be leaving in the next few months to direct Flashpoint, and that is John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein. Now, if you've never heard of them before, it's because these guys combined have only directed 1 feature film before. Unfortunately, that 1 feature film they've directed was the Ed Helms comedy Vacation, which was just awful. Despite the fact that, it's building on the National Lampoon Vacation line, despite the fact that you've got some really good cast in there, Chris Hemsworth is in there, I think Leslie Mann was in there, you had Christina Applegate, the movie was just a train wreck, just an awful, terrible movie. So that's got some people like me a little bit concerned about why Warner Brothers would hand over Flashpoint to these guys. Now, some people are concerned that because they're comedy guys. That doesn't bother me, because they've written a couple of comedies as well as writers. They didn't direct anything else. But that doesn't bother me, because when you really sit back and think about it, the Flash character, who I think was one of the highlights of Justice League, the Flash character was a funny character. I thought he was a great character and handled really well. Like, not slapstick humor, but just good, funny humor connected to his personality that I thought was one of the high points of Justice League. So it kind of makes sense. If you're going to focus a movie on that character, you're going to want to have some fairly strong comedic sensibilities. Not that you outright make it a comedy per se, but you're going to, if you want to be consistent, you're going to want to give it some good comedy sensibilities. So I don't mind the fact that Warner Brothers went after comedy guys to do Flashpoint. That's okay with me. My concern comes from the point that the only film they've directed was a terrible film. That concerns me. And with the precarious situation that DC movies are in with Warner Brothers right now, it seems to me that you'd really want to make sure you are crushing your projects right now. Because they need these films to work. They need Aquaman to work. They need, Flashpoint to work. They need Shazam to work. And they've done a really good job with getting a great director for Aquaman, with getting a great director for Shazam. Why they would then suddenly go out and get these guys, I'm not really sure. Look, who knows? Maybe it'll be incredible. We got to keep an open mind that the potential's still there, that it could work very, very well. So let's be open to that. I just got to question their decision-making process here, but why would they do this? It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But whatever. All right, let's move on to the third big topic from this week. Connected to that Flashpoint story was this little thing hidden in the Variety, because Variety is the one who broke the story about Flashpoint getting new directors. And buried within there was this one little line saying, oh, they had to approach Ben Affleck to direct Flashpoint. And everybody lost their collective mind, saying, wait a minute, how is that not your headline? How do you not have a story based on that? Now, we talked about this on the John Campea show the other day. I have been told, and I'm not the only one, there are a couple of other people out there who have done some checking into this. And what happened was, there were a few other online journalists that looked into this a little bit, and they're being told that their sources are telling them that Ben Affleck was not offered to direct Flashpoint. I then reached out, I talked about this earlier this week, I then reached out to the individual who first let me know that Ben Affleck was not going to be directing Batman before they announced it, and who let me know that Jake Gyllenhaal was the front runner, at least for Matt Reeves, for taking over as Batman in Matt Reeves' Batman films. And both of those turned out to be true. That guy told me that as far as he knew, no such offer was ever made to Ben Affleck. Now, he did say that it is conceivable that if you go back to 2016, that it's conceivable that sometime back then when they first started talking about Flashpoint, that maybe the idea was floated that Ben Affleck directs it. That might be possible. But according to the people I've spoken with, and a couple of other people online who have also spoken to their sources, I'm being told that it's not the case. I've been told that Ben Affleck was not offered the job. Which makes sense, because right now, the situation between Ben and Warner Brothers, it would be very odd for them to offer Ben that job, and it would have been especially odd for Ben to accept it, understand everything else that's going on there. But you never know. Like, just because somebody told me that doesn't mean it's true. I can just tell you what I've been told. It is possible maybe it was very quietly done. Maybe Ben Affleck was offered it, and for whatever reason they decided to offer him that, even though they pulled Batman away from him. It's possible, I guess, but all I can tell you is what I've been told. And what I've been told, and a couple of other people have been told, was that Ben was not actually offered the gig. So who knows? Who knows what the truth in that story is? All right, let's get on now to the next topic here. Another one of the big stories that came out this week, and this is a story that just doesn't seem to want to go away. And that story is that according to a number of reports, Sebastian Stan was at some kind of comic convention, I think, and was asked about Hugh Jackman and whatever. And Sebastian Stan, who of course plays Winter Soldier in the MCU, basically he said he spoke to Hugh Jackman. He was sitting down with Hugh Jackman, and he recalled that conversation and the way that certain outlets reported that conversation made it sound as if Hugh Jackman was saying that he's thinking about coming back to play Wolverine. However, as we talked about on the John Campea show earlier this week, some of those outlets who were running that story left out one very important line in the quote. A very important line in the quote that changed the meaning of Sebastian Stan's comments completely. Because basically, I'm not going to bring up the quote, but here's basically how it worked. People were quoting Sebastian Stan as saying that I was sitting down, I was talking to Hugh Jackman, and I asked him if he was going to be in the movie, and he made it sound like he's thinking about coming back. The problem is in that comment, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, they leave out a line where that changes the meaning of Sebastian Stan's comments entirely. Because Sebastian Stan was saying, oh, like, is Hugh Jackman to come back? Here's the line they basically left out. And again, I'm paraphrasing. But it's basically along the lines of, well, I think we've heard him say before that he would think about something, but I don't know, you'd have to ask him. Again, I'm paraphrasing, but you get the gist. I brought up the actual quote on the John Campea show. And since then, Hugh Jackman has reaffirmed publicly that he is done playing Wolverine. Now, look, never say never, right? Steven Spielberg and George Lucas said Indiana Jones was done after Indiana Jones 3. No more Indiana Jones movies. We thought that there would be no more Star Wars movies after Revenge of the Sith. What is true today may not be true tomorrow. Hugh Jackman has said over and over again he is not going to be playing this thing. Now, there are some people, including in our own chat board, there are some people claiming that there were pictures leaked online of Wolverine, of what is probably Wolverine on the set of Avengers 4. It's important to keep this in mind. Not only is it not Hugh Jackman, it can't be the Wolverine character either, for a couple of reasons. Number one, they started shooting this movie long before there were talks between Fox and Marvel. So even before there were talks, that movie started shooting. They had their script. Everything was done. They were making their movie. And the movie has since wrapped. Number two, and this is another huge thing to keep in mind, even though Disney and Fox have come to an agreement of terms, like they've reached their agreement, that agreement does not go into effect until a number of other significant things have to happen. Essentially, in theory, an agreement's been made, the deal's done, but the deal is not executed. There are several things, including some government regulatory boards and things like that, that have to give approval, and that's going to take a process and all that kind of stuff. So, essentially, Marvel would be illegally putting a Wolverine character in their film at this point. So it's just really not really possible. But again, this is Hollywood, man. Stranger things have happened. We have seen much stranger things. Maybe it's conceivable. Maybe it's possible. But it's extremely unlikely. Extremely unlikely. Because, one, they don't have the legal right to even use the Wolverine character right now as things stand. Number two, it wouldn't be Hugh Jackman. He's repeatedly said he's done playing Wolverine. So anyway, there's all that kind of stuff to keep in mind as well as you guys start hearing all these stories, just keep all that stuff in mind as well. All right, let's move on now to the other big significant news came out, which was some people started running with the story that Black Widow, that Marvel and the MCU have greenlit a Black Widow movie and that a Black Widow movie was now coming. This story is false. All right, let's be clear on that. This story is false. What is true is that Marvel has started to investigate doing a Black Widow movie. They've hired a screenwriter. And some of you might say, but John, if they've hired a screenwriter, that means the movie's greenlit. No. Lots and lots of Marvel projects have gotten to the stage where they've hired a screenwriter, had some passes at a script put together, and then made a decision whether or not to move forward. There's an infamous story about what happened at MCU with Runaways. Now, Runaways is a great show on Hulu right now. But a number of years ago, Marvel had some ideas about making a Runaways movie. They commissioned a script. They got they got extra passes done on the script. And of course, eventually that never came to anything and no movie was ever actually made. That's happened many times at Marvel. So what is true is that Marvel has taken their first steps to maybe leading us to a Black Widow movie. I still don't want one. I don't want either a Hawkeye or a Black Widow movie. I've said that forever. I'm not interested. I love them both as supporting characters. I would love seeing them pop up in every single MCU movie, but I'm honestly not interested in seeing a standalone Hawkeye movie or a standalone Black Widow movie. Whatever. So what is not true is that Marvel has greenlit a Black Widow movie. Not true. What is not true is that a Black Widow movie is now coming. Not true. What is true is that they've taken the first steps. They've hired a screenwriter. Apparently, they said there are reports saying that the screenwriter and Scarlett Johansson are going to meet because apparently Scarlett Johansson has some ideas about the character. Marvel values her creative input because she's played the character for so long. And that's all true. That part is true. Just don't get carried away, though, with some of the headlines that are reading, a Black Widow movie officially coming, because it's not yet. Hopefully, for those fans who want to see a Black Widow movie, they will get to that point. You know, hopefully for your guys' sakes who actually want this movie, hopefully they'll like the script whenever it gets written. They'll think that the MCU has some openings to do a Black Widow movie, and maybe then it can happen at some point. But as of today, as of right now, it is not greenlit, it's not official, it's not actually happening yet, but they have taken the first steps, which happens. That's the way they do it. Sometimes the movies work out, sometimes they don't get made. But that is what the situation is there too. All right. The last topic we're going to talk about here today, before we go over to the live comments and questions from you guys, is about the new CW TV show Black Lightning. Black Lightning debuted this past week, and it debuted very strong. Not just as far as ratings go, and it did pretty well with ratings, but also they did really well just as the episode. I was really impressed with the first episode of Black Lightning. Now, I'm not going to get too excited just because I like the first episode of Black Lightning. I liked the first episode of Constantine too. And that show then went completely to shit after the first premiere episode because they completely changed direction and all this kind of stuff. Anyway, I ended up not liking Constantine after the premiere. But the premiere is all we've got of Black Lightning so far, and so far I'm on board. I really like it. Pardon me. I really like what we've got so far. I like the lead character. I like the supporting characters. I like the underlying story. I like the socio situation that they've set up. It's all really strong. Now, there are some people claiming that Black Lightning has had the biggest debut of any CW superhero show. That is actually false. It's actually had the smallest, or one of the smaller debuts for their superhero shows. From the reports that I read, Black Lightning drew 2.3 million viewers for its debut episode. That is actually behind Legends of Tomorrow, which had something like 3.5 million, and the debut episodes for both Flash and Arrow, which both had 4-point-something million viewers, which is fine. That's not a big deal. The fact of the matter is, though, it was still one of the biggest debut episodes they've had for a show in the last couple of years on the CW. Like, taking superhero stuff out of it, it's one of the strongest debuts they've had in a couple of years, which is great news. But look, I like this show a lot. I think it's got a lot of potential. I'm really curious to see if episode 2 maintains that standard of the first episode of Black Lightning, or if it goes to shit, kind of like Constantine did. But we will keep our eyes open for that. Okay. With that stuff out of the way now, it's time to us to have some discussion. I'm going to jump over now to the live questions, take the live questions and live comments that you guys have been sending in, and we will go from there. And maybe in a bit, I will get some Twitter questions as well. If you want to take a chance and send in a tweet, I can't guarantee we'll get to your tweet if you send it in. But if you want to take a chance, you can tweet to me. Well, first of all, make sure you're following me on Twitter at John Campea. And once you make sure you're following me, just send out a tweet. Start your tweet with at John Campea, send it out, and I'll try to get to a couple of Twitter questions as well. Okay, with that done, let's get to the first question today. And the first one comes to us from Kianan Lonsdale is joining Legends of Tomorrow series as a regular. Now, for those of you who don't know who he is, he plays Wally West in The Flash. He's Kid Flash. And as I was talking about last season and this season of Flash, it really felt like the writers of The Flash haven't known what to do with Kid Flash. they've done a pretty good job developing this character, but it kind of seems like they don't know what to do with him now. Where does he fit in the Flash? Well, apparently their answer is he doesn't fit in on the show, but he's too good of a character to just throw away. So apparently now he is going to become a series regular on Legends of Tomorrow, which is important because they've just lost a couple of key characters and a couple of cast members. So, yeah, so they're going to move him over there. He's going to join the show and become a regular member there. Having a speedster there is actually kind of cool because one of the adversarial villains they've had in the show ongoing is Eobard Thawne, who is, of course, a speedster himself. So having a speedster to be able to combat the evil speedster makes sense. They needed to add 1 or 2 more team members. So it looks like they've gotten that taken care of. So I'm really excited about the move because I like the character development they've done with Wally West. He just wasn't fitting in with the cast over at Flash. I think he'll fit in better, and they'll have more for Kid Flash to do over on Legends of Tomorrow, so I think it's a good move. All right. Sam Fisher also writes in, this is comic books adjacent. What is your favorite and best biopic starring Chadwick Boseman, 42? Get on up, Marshall. My favorite is 42. Well, come on, Sam. That's not a comic book question. I'll answer it just this once. That's not really a comic book question. Mine used to be 42, but I think Marshall is better. I think Marshall's a better movie, and I think his performance is even better in Marshall than it was in 42 or Get On Up, and he's great in both of those. I can't wait to see him with his own Black Panther movie, how that's going to turn out. But almost nobody went to go see Marshall. It was just out a couple months ago. And almost nobody went to go see it, and it's great. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I thought Chadwick Boseman was great in it. All right, we go to Jed Jensen, who writes, is it just me, or has the Flash's lightning been getting less yellow and more red as the series goes on? I haven't really thought about it, Jed. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I always kind of thought his lightning should have been red anyway, just because he's, the Scarlet Speedster, he's red. So I always thought they'd make the lightning a little bit red. From a visual point of view, I understand why they've done yellow. But I'll keep an eye on that. I'll go watch the next episode of Flash, and I'll try to see if I notice that they're changing the shades of the color or not. That's a really interesting question. What do you guys think who are watching live? Or jump down to the chat board even if you're not watching live. Have you been noticing that they've been changing the color of his lightning? I haven't, off the top of my head, I can't think of it, but I'm going to have to go back. I haven't been watching for it. So I'll go back and watch for that. Interesting point to bring up, Jed. All right. Sam Fisher writes, Ron Cephas Jones cast as the Wizard in Shazam, and then Sam writes, correction, he is actually in talks to play the role. For those of you who don't know who Ron Cephas is, he can be seen on TV right now in NBC's terrific show, This Is Us. It's also, it's the show on TV right now, is This Is Us. And, of course, a guy I know, Milo Ventimiglia, is one of the stars of the show. He's fantastic in it. I'm a little bit biased because Milo is the guy who's introduced me to my wife. So I'm a little bit biased there, granted, but it's a fabulous show. And Ron Cephas was just fantastic in it. And even though his character has died in the show, they still do a lot of flashback scenes with him. And he's wonderful in that show. He would be great in that type of a role. I think it'd be wonderful. Look, I always say it's never a mistake to add talent. This guy is talented. He's a terrific actor. And so to add that type of talent to the movie, regardless of what actor it comes from, but to add that kind of talent is a good move. And yes, as you corrected yourself, Sam, he has not been cast in the film, but he is in talks. So that means the studios picked him, but now they got to see if they can work out a deal. And usually when it gets to that point, usually it works out, not all the time. But fingers crossed, hopefully we'll hear an announcement pretty soon. All right, Maximum Effort 44T writes, would a Black Widow movie have a better chance at this point of being made than the Runaways project, considering she's already a well-established character in the MCU, or does that not even matter? Here's the thing. The fact that she's already a well-established character in the MCU almost suggests to me a lesser need to give her her own standalone film. Like, we get her. We get Nat in a lot of these movies. She even popped up momentarily in Thor Ragnarok, but we get her, she has no movies to her name, But she's in an awful lot of the MCU movies. Avengers, Avengers 2, Captain America Winter Soldier, Captain America Civil War. I mean, she pops up in Thor Ragnarok now, but that was just a small cameo appearance. She is a significant character, but she is a supporting character, much like Hawkeye. Much like, say, War Machine. I love all these characters, and I love them popping up in these movies. But I gotta admit, I just don't feel the need to see them in a standalone film. Particularly Hawkeye and Black Widow, just because they are essentially just regular human beings in a universe full of gods. So, I don't know, that's just me, but I would almost think that the fact that she has been in so many MCU movies as a supporting character takes away from the possibility a little bit, I think, of giving her own standalone film. You know, they already decided to do a Black Panther standalone film before they put Chadwick Boseman as Black Panther in Civil War. And he had never popped up before. He had never been in any of the movies. We're going to do a Black Panther movie, and we're going to have him pop up, make his first appearance in Civil War. That's what they did. But Nat, Black Widow, she's been in all these movies. I just think it would be a questionable decision. To be honest with you, I think it would be a very questionable decision. But anyway, that's just me. Maybe a lot of you guys think it would be a great idea to do a Black Widow movie. I just think there's a lot of other really well-deserving female superhero characters in the Marvel roster that they could plug in and do. But that's just me. I want to know what you guys think. Jump in the comment section and let me know what you think. Kyle White writes, adding on to a question you got earlier today, Hulk got a complete redesign, but it's the same Hulk. Do you think Abomination 2 if they kept Tim Roth? Yeah, earlier today on the John Campea show, somebody brought up the question about, do I think we could see the MCU use Abomination again? My response was, oh my God, I hope so. Like, I love Abomination. I think he's a great villain, and he's a great foil for Hulk. Because one of the things you're always going to struggle with in the MCU is adversaries that could actually pose a threat to Hulk. There's not many. I mean, you could say Thor, but you know my opinion. I think if that fight continues from Thor Ragnarok, eventually Hulk wins that fight. Because he just doesn't stop. He doesn't get tired. The angrier he gets, the stronger he gets. Now, you've got Thanos. Yeah, I think Thanos would be able to beat him down. But as far as, you know, an active, viable nemesis, an active, viable villain that you could use in a movie to be a counterpoint to Hulk, Abomination's perfect. And I love the way they use the Abomination character in that other Hulk film. So, could they do a complete redesign of him? It's possible. Yeah. I mean, he'll still look like Abomination, because Hulk, they did a redesign, but he's still essentially the same. I mean, you look at him, there's no question. That's Hulk. That's what Hulk looks like. And I think they would do the same thing with Abomination. All right. Kyle White writes, The Thing versus Hulk in a future MCU movie. I remember one of the very first comics I ever bought was Hulk versus Thing. And I believe the comic that I bought, Hulk won, and Hulk would win. But wouldn't that be cool? At some point, the one I really want to see is Hulk fighting Wolverine. Because that was the first comic I ever bought, was Hulk fighting Wolverine. So I would lose my mind to see that fight on screen. That would be just amazing. But another great one, you're absolutely right, Kyle, would be Hulk versus Thing. That would look amazing. I'd love to see that. Ben Rayner writes, over or under 65% that Lex shows up in Arrowverse. And would you want Rosenbaum? No, I don't want Rosenbaum back. That's a different cinematic universe altogether. Look, if you wanted to bring Rosenbaum back, because he's not all that busy, if you wanted to bring him back, you'd have to bring him back as something other than Lex Luthor. These are not the same universes. So just don't do that. I'm going to take the under that Lex shows up in the Arrowverse. I would take a serious under. I mean, it's possible he could, but I would probably actually set the line like around 20%. So if you're going to make the line 65, I'm going to take the under on that. Andrew Fan writes, when is the Runaways review coming? Well, I mean, I did a review. It's been tough. I've been busy. I've been putting up 2 to 3 videos a day. And when you work by yourself and doing all the editing and all the graphics and all that kind of stuff, it's not easy. But I did a review of the first 3 episodes. One review of the first 3 episodes. So that's up. You can go and see that. I think I might have missed my window of opportunity to put up a review of season 1 of Runaways because it ended like 2 weeks ago. So I could put in like the 4 or 5 hours of effort to do a review, but I don't think anybody's looking for a review of Runaways season 1 anymore. And I don't think it would really get any views. So I think I missed my window of opportunity, which is fine because I was on vacation. And by vacation, I mean I was in a hospital suffering from the plague, apparently. But yeah, I don't think I'm going to do one now. Look, I'll tell you what I thought of it. I loved it. To me, Runaways got better and better and better as the first season went along. I still think I slightly prefer The Gifted, but I didn't have high expectations for either The Gifted or The Runaways. Like, I wasn't, like, jumping up and down all excited about either one of those shows. And I have really fallen in love with both of them. I think they're both great. They're 2 very different shows. They take 2 very different approaches. But I'm a big fan of The Gifted, and I'm a big fan of Runaways. And that season finale was fantastic. Just fantastic. Loved it. So, anyway, so there's my review of Runaways. Let's see. Devontae Brown writes, since it's CW night, how was Supernatural's spin-off episode? Haven't watched it yet. So I have no comment on that. I have really quite enjoyed this season of Supernatural. But I haven't seen the supposed setting up to a spin-off episode. I haven't watched that yet. So maybe once I'll mention it on, maybe on one of the shows this weekend. Kyle White writes, I think Vision acts and sounds a lot like Silver Surfer. Do you think Marvel will take a different approach to Silver Surfer when they decide to introduce him? I don't know. I think they're lightly similar, which is fine. I mean, I don't think they look so drastically different that I'm not sure you have to be too terribly concerned about that. And to be honest with you, who knows when they're going to use Silver Surfer? It could be forever. I mean, we just don't know. So I'm not so sure that we're going to get a Silver Surfer anytime soon, like anytime within the next 4 to 5 years. It's possible, but there's only so many movies that can make it at once, and I don't think they have any plans to use Silver Surfer right now. But once they do, honestly, I don't think they have to worry about that too much. Just give him his personality, whatever you want it to be, and it'll be fine. And even if there are some similarities with Vision, I wouldn't worry about it too much, to be honest, if I was them. Kyle Wright also writes, when will we hear references for Fantastic Four or X-Men in the MCU? Well, again, there are still some hurdles they have to get through over the deal between Fox and Marvel. Those questions have to be answered first. Once those questions are answered, then Kevin Feige, I'm sure Kevin Feige's already thinking about it, is, you know, he already had his next 10, 15, 20 movies planned. Where do we fit in? Do we want to make them naturally come in, or do we try to force them in? Do we try to shoehorn them in? And I hope they don't try to shoehorn. There's no rush. There's really no rush. And you know what? I like to think that maybe there's still like a 5% chance that instead of forcing them into their Marvel Cinematic Universe, that maybe they use them in a separate universe on their Disney streaming station. And honestly, I think as much as I'd love to see Wolverine fighting Hulk, and I'd love to see the Thing fighting Hulk, and all that kind of stuff, and all the possibilities they have, I think if I had my first choice, I would still say, give the X-Men and the Fantastic Four their own cinematic universe on the Disney streaming network. I know a lot of you would not like that, and that's fine, but that's where I'm coming from as a fan, so who knows? We'll have to see what they do with that. Let's see. D. Edwards writes, if Warner Brothers were to reboot, if and when, what character do you think they start off with and becomes their initial base character, i.e. Iron Man to the MCU, Superman to the DCEU? The answer to that is simple. It's Batman. Batman. He is your most recognizable, your most profitable, and your most important character is Batman. And that's a character you can build your universe around. They're in a great position right now, and they're not going to do it. I know they're not going to do it, but they're in a great position where you've got Matt Reeves, who's a terrific filmmaker. Give him a clean slate to do his Batman stuff, disassociate it from anything DCEU, and then use those movies, do 2 or 3 of them first, just Batman movies. Use those movies as your building blocks for an expanded, brand new DC cinematic universe. That's how I would do it. And I think that's the clearly obvious character you do it with. But unfortunately, I don't think that's what they're going to do. I think they're going to be stubborn about it. I think they're just going to keep moving forward the DCEU as it is, despite the facts that all the numbers prove that the audience has been abandoning the DCEU, unfortunately. I like all the movies they put out personally. That's just me. That doesn't mean I stick my head in the sand and ignore the numbers. The numbers are the numbers. The numbers don't care about my opinion. You know, my opinion is I love Man of Steel. I like Suicide Squad. I like Batman vs. Superman very much. I liked Wonder Woman very much. I like Justice League very much. But the numbers don't care what I think. The numbers are the numbers. They are cold and emotionless and really they have no bias. They just are. And the numbers have shown that the audience has been abandoning the DCEU. You put out a Justice League movie and it's the lowest. Less people went to go see Justice League than any other DCEU movie. That's terrible. There's no way to paint that. There's no way to sugarcoat that. That is terrible. I really think they need to seriously consider rebooting this universe. Now, unfortunately, rebooting the universe means you have to throw out some good things. But guess what? Whenever you realize you need to start from scratch to build a healthier organization, that means some of the things you got to throw out are good things. That's just the way it is. That's life. But what's your other option? Just keep going with all the other baggage that comes along with it? But anyway, it doesn't matter what I think. I don't think they're going to do it. I think they're just going to keep moving ahead. Good question, D. Edwards. All right. Durama1 writes, John, what do you think of Black Lightning being more explicit than the other DCCW shows? I don't know what you're talking about, to be honest. I like the show very much, but to be quite frank with you, I didn't notice it as more explicit than anything else. I mean, there wasn't any real vulgarity. There wasn't any nudity. There wasn't any sex. There wasn't, I mean, so I'm honestly don't know what you mean. And there, you know, there's been some pretty edgy stuff, especially in the humor. There have been some very risque moments of humor in the Arrow show. So I don't know that I agree that Black Lightning was more explicit than the other CW shows, to be frank with you. Let's see. Jessica Tennis writes, Brian Michaels Bendis, to my understanding, joined DC to large degree to work on the DC movies. What do you feel his opportunities are now? Bad timing? Well, it really, I mean, it depends. There have been so many shakeups, and let me just bring up something here from on Box Office Mojo just for a second here. It really depends on where they are right now as far as what their future plans are. That's where the things are right now. Where are they? Because as a creator, here's the thing. Warner Brothers has been through so many shakeups, and they just installed a brand new head of DC movies and all that kind of stuff. What they do is really, who knows? And really, when you're talking about the comic book side of it versus the television side of it versus the movie side of it, there's still some very strong lines and divisions between them. And maybe somebody was told you're going to have influence here or influence here or influence there, but until the overall shakeup really resolves itself, I don't think we're going to know what any executive or creative or whatever in the Warner Brothers stable is going to be able to do. Because when you look at these box office numbers, I mean, look, it's not just the box office numbers, it's the fact that Warner Brothers has been reacting to them. Warner Brothers is in massive shakeup mode. All right? Jeff Johns is no longer calling the shots. They've got a new head of this. A couple of the other major executives have been brushed out and moved away. Who knows how long Kevin Tsujihara is even going to be the CEO there, if he will still be the CEO after the AT&T takeover, if that even happens. What's going to happen if Aquaman only makes like $400 million at the box office? You know, there's still a lot of big questions to be answered. So until we get some of those answered, I think questions like that, especially with guys like Brian, it's going to be very unclear what their role is, what kind of influence they're going to have. But then again, like I said, television, comic books, movies, there's some pretty strong walls in between those. So he might be affected in one area and not affected in the other. We'll just have to see. All right. Maximum Effort. 44T writes, John, you skipped some super chats right at the beginning. I don't think I did. Let me go back and take a look. CFS Do you think the season 2 is Gifted? Oh, I did miss that. Look at that. Max Manford wrote, do you think season 2 of The Gifted will be all about the Hellfire Club versus the Underground? Yes. I don't want to spoil too much about the season finale of The Gifted. I thought the season finale was awesome. And they did some things in that show that I did not see coming. That I simply did not see coming. You know, they're setting up and they're going to go after the bad guy, but will they really do something to the bad guy? And you think, no, they won't do anything to the bad guy. And then they do what they do. And it's like, oh my God, this is blowing my mind. I mean, it was unexpected. It was surprising. It was great. Yes, I do think season 2 of The Gifted will all be about the Mutant Underground versus the new Hellfire Club and the reestablishment of the Hellfire Club. I think we're going to find out a lot more about Polaris. And we'll just have to see where they go. But yes, so anyway. Call of Duty Zombies writes, I disagree with your opinion about live-action Wolverine suit. It doesn't have to be spandex. It could be a leather suit with a new modern spin. Hey, look. Look, but here's the thing, Call of Duty. Then that's not the comic book costume. And that I'm fine. There are people out there screaming for the comic book costume. And I'm like, you cannot do the costume to make it look like it looks in the comic book. Fine, yes, do a different take on it. Maybe still have the basic color pattern, but have it done in a different way. Freshen it up, adapt it for the big screen. Yes, I'm all for that. I've said that from day one. But there are a lot of people, that's not what they want. They want the actual costume from the comic book. And that's when I usually go, no, that'll look ridiculous. An adapted version of it? Yes, that can absolutely work, depending on the design. But yes, that can absolutely work. So no, you're not disagreeing with me. You're actually completely agreeing with me, because that's what I've been saying this whole time. Let's see. The Big Man Jr. wrote, hey, John, your show is the best. Thank you so much, Big Man. I really appreciate that. Since I know you love Man of Steel as much as I do, what would you like them to do with Superman going forward? How about anything? Look, I'm not going to sit here and be one of these fans that I'm going to tell, here's what you need to do with the character. You need to do this. That's pointless. There's no point in doing that. But how about doing something with them? For my money, Man of Steel is still by far the best movie the DCEU has done. And Superman is still the character with way more upside than anybody else. And yet, we're hearing about fucking Gotham City Sirens movie, and we're hearing about, I mean, for shit's sakes, I mean, apparently it's not happening anymore. We were even hearing about Blue Beetle and Booster Gold movie, and we're hearing about a Joker spinoff, and we're hearing about this, and we're hearing about this. Where the hell is Man of Steel 2? So, Big Man Jr., when you ask me what would I do, how about anything? Please, DC, do something. So I know that. Are you catching a little bit of my frustration right now? So clearly, yes. Let's see. Andrew Hogue writes, which movie would make more money, Iron Man 4 or Thor 4? I think that's pretty easy, Iron Man 4. Iron Man's biggest box office results are all far bigger than Thor's biggest box office results, so I'll go Iron Man 4 on that. Let's see. Chris Warden wrote, I could care less whether it be Disney, Warner Brothers, Sony, or Fox. I just want good comic book films and for them to be successful. P.S. I thought Justice League were great. Look, I keep saying this. Real fans, not these toxic individuals dressed up and pretending to be real fans. Real fans want all comic book movies to be great. We know they're not all great, but we want them to be great. Doesn't matter if it comes with a Marvel label on them. Doesn't matter if it comes with the DC label on them. What real fans want, and real fans represent 90% of the movie fans out there, not these 10% wolves in sheep's clothing toxic rejects. Real fans want all movies to be great. It's these fake, artificial, corporate zombie slave toxic fans. They're not even fans. Don't even give them that label. Don't even let them be called fans. That would sit there and cheer for a movie to fail. You know, that would cheer, Marvel sucks, so I hope that movie crashes and burns. Okay, you're not a real fan. You're just a toxic, angry little troll boy, blah, blah, or the other way around. I hope Justice League fails and blah, blah, blah. Do you know what? You're not a fan. No, that doesn't mean you have to say everything is good. No, I don't like a number of Marvel movies. There's certainly a lot of Marvel TV shows I hate. There's certainly a number of projects that DC have done that I don't think have worked. Sure, you don't have to say you like something if you don't, but you don't sit there and cheer for other things to go bad. Those are fake fans. Again, I shouldn't even use the word fans. They don't deserve to have that word used with them. They're just angry little toxic trolls. But anyway, I am completely with you, Chris. It's all about, we're comic book movie fans. We just want them all to be great, and we cheer for them all, and we want them all to do well, as long as they deserve to be doing well. Let's see. Elijah A. Name writes, is Warner Brothers sour at Ben because of Live by Night and not giving Ben the Batman movie to direct or his script? Live by Night had nothing to do with it. I can absolutely guarantee you there's a lot of other stuff behind the scenes. Live by Night had nothing to do with it whatsoever. I can guarantee you that. Let's see. Okay, now I'm caught up. Now I can go back down to the questions later on. Let's see. Where did we leave off? Let's see. Okay, there we go. So Devontae Brown. John, gifted season finale and season 1 thoughts. Well, I've already kind of expressed those. I thought it was great. I love the finale. I love season 1. I thought it was just terrific. And Trevor Johnson writes, I'd love if they got Rosenbaum to play a role in the A-verse. I get excited when they bring in past comic actors, Terry Thatcher, Mark Hamill, John Wesley Shipp, etc. It's one of my favorite things they do. Yeah, no, look, I'm actually down for that too. I kind of get a kick when they bring in former actors into different roles. I'll give a pass to the Mark Hamill thing playing the Trickster. That's fine. I'll give a pass to that one. But yeah, I also get a big kick out of that when we see a former actor from the comic book properties come back and play a different role. That always get a kick out of too, and I'm all for that, to be honest with you. All right, guys, that will do it for this week's installment of The Weekly Hero. I have a lot of fun on this show, just talking about everything going on this past week, getting your guys' thoughts and opinions. Thank you guys so much for sharing your thoughts and opinions with me. Now, for those of you guys who are here right now, I want to make an announcement, just in case you didn't hear it on the John Campea show earlier. There is a bit of a programming change coming to the John Campea channel starting on Monday, and that is this. The John Campea show is being shortened to about 30 to 40 minutes long, and is instead of being on at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, that's 1 p.m. East Coast time, the John Campea show will now be airing at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, that's Los Angeles time, or 11 a.m. New York time. So that's when it's going to be on. And it's only going to take 2 or 3 live questions. It's no longer going to take 15 or 20 live questions like it used to, because the show is getting too long. So what we're doing is the John Campea show in Los Angeles time at 8 a.m. LA time. And then at 4 p.m. every day, we're going to be doing a live show that is nothing but live questions. So that way we have tons of time for live questions, and that way the John Campea show doesn't run overtime. So starting Monday, and by the way, I'm still struggling to find a name for that show, a name for that live show that's going to be at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 4 p.m. Los Angeles time. I haven't come up with a name for the show yet, so if you have some ideas for the name of a show, it's not going to be called John Campea After Dark, because in Los Angeles it's only 4 p.m. in the afternoon. So I'm not going to call it John Campea After Dark. But send me your ideas. I'd love to hear your ideas and just keep you guys up to date on that. So, with all that out of the way, go Patriots, go. Looking forward to a New England Patriot, probably Philadelphia Eagle Super Bowl. That's going to be magnificent. Thank you guys for joining me. Jump into the comment section, leave a thought. Make sure you click the subscribe button. Become one of my subscribers. Click the thumbs up button. Follow me on social media on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. Right here you can see where you can find me is just at John Campea. That will do it for me for today, guys. Thanks so much for joining me. My name is John Campea, and until my next video, bye-bye.